This is Melissa Moore of Melissa Makes Quilts, and I'm so excited to show you our quilt project today because we are going to make the cutest quilt you've ever seen, I hope. I ordered online. Wait for it, wait for it. Look how cute! Isn't this so cute? It's a little hoodie. It's a Christmas hoodie. And you can even stick the sleeves into the pockets. Look at that. It's so cute. Now, it looks like it's made for a doll, but it's not. This goes in your car. It goes on your gear shifter. In your car, either it's a full-on gear shifter or you have the one that moves from park to reverse to neutral, and this just fits over the top. It's stretchy. Sometimes you have a little bump, a little button that sticks out, and the button can fit through this hole. It's Christmassy. It's wonderful. You can get these for less than $10 online on places like Amazon and such. But it's not quilty. And we love quilty things. So we are going to make the cutest little tiny quilt. And we're going to put it right here on the hoodie so that we have a quilty hoodie. Let's get started. Okay, our first step, we need to pick a quilt. We need to know what kind of quilt we're going to put on the hoodie. So I'm going to go with some inspiration from one of my Christmas quilts that I made a few years ago. I'll put a link in the description for the pattern, but it's one of my favorite Christmas quilts. I'm going to show you. It's Christmas trees. You've probably seen quilts like this. I'm going to stand back so you can see more of it. It's a pattern that is referred to as stack and whack. You can make a whole bunch of them, but it's a basic triangle shape. And then it has a trunk. So it looks like it would be a pretty easy quilt to do in a little tiny version. I'll show you the back just because who doesn't want to see a good quilt back? It's polka dots. And the border is a gingham plaid buffalo check. So let's get started. Let's figure out how we're going to make a teeny tiny Christmas tree quilt block. Well, I picked out some fabrics for my Christmas tree block. It's better to use a solid if you can when you're making a tiny, 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 tiny quilt. Any kind of a print might be distracting. If that's all you have, go for it. It'll be fine. But if you have a tiny print, I cut this out to be 1.5 inches by 1.25 inches. So this right here, you can see it's going to be a little big for this area. We're going to trim it down later. It's easier to work with a bigger piece. And then we can just trim as needed. So this is 1.5 by 1.25. I have 2 different white squares. They're 2.5 inch squares. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our first white square and place it over here. And we're gonna make the first side of the tree. So I don't want to put this top all the way in the middle. See, this is the middle. I want it to be over closer to the side. And I want this end to be just a little bit in, maybe 1/8 of an inch in from the corner. So not all the way to the corner. So we're gonna go not all the way to the middle, not all the way to the side, just like this. And I'm going to stitch. I'm just going to stitch a line 1/4 inch in. And after it's stitched, we'll be able to fold this back. And that's one side of our Christmas tree. I'm going to get this stitched just like this. Here we go. I've got my seam sewn right here. You can see my seam. It's 1/4 inch from the edge. And I can flip this back now and look at it. And it looks like I have a good diagonal line, which will make a good half of the Christmas tree. The other white is going to go this direction, which you see the green, it will look like a Christmas tree. So now that I know I'm happy with this, I'm going to trim this. I'm going to place my fabric down here. We're going to just use my ruler. I'm going to trim right along the edge of the white. Right along the white edge. I'm just going to trim this extra part of the tree off. And now I'm going to press it. I'm going to pull this back along the stitching and just give it a good press right here. Okay, this is pressed. I'm going to grab my second 2.5 inch square, and much like before, I'm just going to place it down onto the green. This time we're going to do this side. So I'm going to place the edge not quite halfway, and this edge not quite to the corner. So just center it up and down. I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch from the edge right along here. I'll be right back. I've got it stitched. Here's my line. Just to check, I'm going to open up this little flap and look, we have a Christmas tree shape. Don't worry about this crazy shape on the outside because we're going to trim it. We're working big. We're going to trim down, but I see the triangle. This is exciting. Let's pull this back how we stitched it, and I'm going to cut off this green section now that I know that it turned out all right. Let's trim this down. I'm going to put my ruler right up against the edge of the white line, and there we go. I'm going to go to my iron and press this flat. It's time to trim our Christmas tree. Let's go ahead and set this Christmas tree down on the mat. I'm going to turn it sideways, and we're going to cut a straight line right across the bottom of it. Let's see. We're going to want our Christmas tree to be 1 inch. So I'm going to find with my ruler from the top of the tree to the bottom of the tree, that's 1 inch. Now I'm going to add 1/4 inch this way and this way, left and right. I'm going to add 1/4 inch, so I'll have a little extra that I can tuck underneath so I won't have a raw edge. So here we go. I've moved 1/4 inch this way. I'm going to make sure the tree is looking nice and straight against this bottom edge. And I'll get my rotary cutter and just slice this bottom edge away. Look at that. It's looking more and more Christmassy all the time. Let's do the top edge. I'm going to add 1/4 inch. This is where I originally wanted my tree to be. I'm going to move 1/4 inch to the right. And I'm going to cut straight across. Let's see. Right here. That's it. Right there. All right. Let's cut across this top edge here. Oh, it's so festive. It's looking like a Christmas tree. We're going to cut the left and the right. I want this tree to be left and right 1 inch. So we're gonna add 1/4 of an inch this way and 1/4 of an inch that way, just so we have the extra that we can tuck under. So let me center within the inch. Ideally, this is where my inch would be. I'm gonna move this direction a little bit. Let's cut it right there. Flip this around. That's where the inch would be. I'm going to add 1/4 of an inch. There we go. Because we added 1/4 of an inch each direction, this is actually a 1.5 inch square, which is perfect. I have the tree. It's so cute. It's ready to go. I want it to be 1 inch. Right now it is 1.5 inches, so that I can fold under 1/4 of an inch, fold under 1/4 of an inch, fold under 1/4 of an inch, just every side. That would bring it down to 1 inch if I folded every side under, and then I can attach it here to the hoodie. And it's so cute as is. Now I'm thinking I might want white underneath. I might want to fully enclose my tree with a white border all the way around. And if that is the case, I'm going to trim off right here. I'm going to trim off 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to attach 1/2 of an inch right here. All right, let's trim this down. Let's get it let's see. All right, here we go. Let's make this 1/4 of an inch narrower. And I have my 1/2 inch piece of fabric right over here. I will attach this on with a 1/4 inch seam, and then my tree will be fully enclosed with white. The tree is pressed. I'm going to go ahead and fold each side under now. Each side needs to be folded under 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to press that with the iron so that it stays. So I'll be right back. I'm just going to iron each edge under 1/4 of an inch. Now, as I began pressing, I noticed that this little top piece kept popping open as I turned it under. So I went ahead and stitched really close to the edge. That's just called a stay stitch. I stitched right across the top to hold it together. And now when I press it under, it's gonna stay together better. Oh, it's getting cuter and cuter. Here's my tree. I have it pressed under on the back, and I have some little clippies, some Wonder Clips, holding that pressing down for me. It's ready to attach to the hoodie. Now, sometimes your sewing machine, you can make it very narrow so that you can stitch inside of tiny little things. I find it's easier to just get a needle and thread and just by hand, just up, down, up, down, up, down, just around the edges, just stitch it down really quickly. This isn't something that somebody's actually going to wear and launder all the time, so it doesn't have to be, you don't need to use any stabilizer. It's a little bit easier than that. I'm just going to go ahead and stitch quickly around with some white thread to match this white background fabric, and I'll be right back. Ta-da! It's done. Look how cute. There's my little Christmas tree. I can't even stand it. It's so cute. I'm gonna put it in the car. Before I put it in the car, I wanted to tell you, if you don't want to make a little tiny quilt square, you can always cut out a piece of fabric and wrap the edges under and stitch it on. It could even be sewing fabric. I have some fabric that has little tiny sewing machines on it. And I have some fabric that has little tiny buttons on it. The fabric stores always seem to have at least one line of fabric with sewing notions, with pictures of things that seamstresses and quilters would love. Some fabric even looks like a quilt. It looks like little quilt stitches or a little quilt square or even cross stitching. You see this all the time. Any kind of quilty or sewing machine fabric would be so cute. I love that I made a quilt square. That's a real quilted quilt square made by me, and I'm gonna go put this in the car. Here we go. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you can find me again next time, Quilty friends.